Hi all, our notable game today is Hikaru Nakamura playing white against Samuel Sevian, who's the world's youngest US American ever to become a Grandmaster. He's currently 14 years old, so Nakamura's up against a little kid basically in round 4 of the Millionaire Chess Open. Let's talk about Sevian for a moment. Born December 26, 2000, he became an FM in 2012, IM 2013, GM just last year, 2014. World Under 12 champion in 2012, world number 1 Under 14, April to November last year, 2014. He's the world's youngest Grandmaster, the youngest US American ever to become a Grandmaster, and the first born in 2000. He gained the title on 23rd of November 2014 at the age of 13 years, 10 months, 28 days, when he defeated Andrei Gorovets in the St. Louis GM Invitational to lift his live rating to over 2,500, therefore fulfilling the last criterion for the GM title. So, an amazing child prodigy. So what could Nakamura do? C4, he chooses the English opening, an opening known for positional play, strategic play. So E5 from Samuel Sevian. We have G3, Knight F6, and now the most popular approach is to play Bishop G2, not develop the knights. The bishops are often exerting an influence over the 4 fundamental central squares. Another key feature of the English opening is trying to increase your majority of pawns in the center. It's a lot about central control, central grip. Black plays D5, as though he's playing reverse Sicilian defense. C takes D5, Knight takes D5, a very popular approach. Nearly 3,000 games in live book from this position. It's all been seen before. Knight F3, Knight C6, white castles, Bishop E7. Quite popular here is A3, often for a plan of B4, maybe threatening B5 or just fianchettoing the bishop. We see similar veins, in similar vein to this, Rook B1, with the idea of B4, B5. Now Black's most popular response here is trying to clamp down on this B4 by playing A5 here. 128 games in live book, players play A5. For example, games might go like this, etc. But we don't see that actually. And as I mentioned, one of the central ideas of the English opening is trying to increase your majority of pawns, central control, maximize your central control. If you can knock out one of the opponent's central pawns, then that's a very good thing to do generally. Black castled, and actually here tactically B4 is available and is played. It's available. It's a dangerous position. You might think, hold on a sec, what about but Bishop takes B4? It is not even mentioned in live book, and I believe the reason is just Knight takes E5. But I want to 100% check this. Knight takes E5 is actually given a mention here. I want to 100% check this. Knight takes E5 would be the move here, and then if Bishop takes, we play Knight takes C6, hitting the Queen. And this is good for white. This is a clear advantage for white. So that's even outside of live book. Closing that for a moment. So Bishop takes B4 is not possible here. Knight takes B4 is just not very nice either, just to lose. It seems, in principle, Black has lost that central pawn. So white's got the majority of central pawns. It's not as clear, not as easy as that in specifics of positions, but the fundamental thing, if these start going forward later, they're a dangerous force, these central pawns. So basically, Black, though, had a particular idea in mind, it seems. Quite often A6 is played just to stop B5. So not taking this pawn at all, just A6, trying to put the brakes on things. That might be one of the safer moves, 50 games in live book. But in fact, E4, this is very rare, 2 games, 2 major games. Now one of them is of Savon here. After Knight takes E4, so Black's idea now is quite interesting. Black played bishop f5 in this game. Now there's a game, Sorokin Savon. Savon's a 2-4-6-5, and he drew with Savon in Cheblinsk 1991, playing knight takes b4. There was a game here, knight takes b4, which went like this, knight 4 to d5, like this, and it carried on from this sort of position. But here we have, yeah, quite an unusual move now, bishop f5, just pinning that knight to the rook. And it seems a little bit tactically uncomfortable. But on the other hand, you know, white's a pawn up for the moment, temporarily. And black should feel strategically uncomfortable because, in theory, you know, white has increased his preponderance of central pawns. Nakamura plays queen c2. And actually, with queen c2, okay, he's gone into a self-pin, but there is a possibility here of knight f6 check to take off that bishop. Now, black parries that here. Doesn't play knight takes b4 because that might actually run into that knight f6 check. He actually plays bishop takes b4, which means the queen is free for queen takes f6 on knight f6. Okay, so it doesn't matter now. Black has restored pawn equality at least, and would seem to have in some ways a reasonable position. But let's see what happens. a3, bishop d6, e3. This frees up the d4 square. The knight doesn't have to nanny that d4 square, and this is useful if the knight wants to move later, maybe to h4 to harass this bishop. And here, you know, black's already conscious of knight h4 to harass the bishop now because of this e3, and gives a path backwards for the bishop. And we see knight h4, bishop h7. But the thing is, the bishop can be potentially blunted now, f4, with f5 just taking this bishop out of the game. So not only white's getting you know, the central pawns, his pawns are actually for the moment gripping the dark squares, and the bishop is going to reinforce that grip on the dark squares. And if we have this position with the pawn on f5, then potentially also f6 will coordinate 1, 2, 3, 4 attacking pieces on that f6 square. So it won't be just about blunting the bishop. Playing for f6 will be extremely destructive for black's king's position here. Black plays bishop e7, trying to dissuade f5, as though he's threatening to win a pawn here. Nakamura doesn't care about that. He plays f5 anyway. That would just help white's cause quite a lot. To try and win a pawn here would be exceptionally dangerous. For example, this didn't happen, but let's have a quick look. This is just crushing this sort of position. We have this focal point on f6. We've got things like this and this. For example, rook e8 it's an overwhelming position. Let's give a silly example, a6, just to show how crushing it could be on a routine move. You can see the coordination is actually winning on f6 here. It's just an example of smashing through to black's king. So it's very dangerous for black's king here. He doesn't really want to accept this pawn sack. He plays actually knight e5. He leaves that alone. Plays knight e5, trying to shore up this diagonal, in fact. So bishop b2, f6. But yeah, his bishop's condemned on h7. a4. Now white plays on the queen side as well. b7 is slightly more vulnerable with this blockade set up. Yes, that b7 pawn. We see knight ec4. Bishop comes to d4, celebrating white's central control, that pawn on e3. White's control of the centre is great. He's reinforced his control of c5 as well. He's got numerous ideas. a5 is on the cards because we've always got that check. It's a really powerful position. a5 is stopped by black playing a5 himself, but he's further weakening that b file a bit. And we see now knight c5. The knight now threatens knight e6, winning the exchange. There's also knight takes b7, bishop takes b7. So black's in a bad state here. A concession is made. He gives up his bishop pair with bishop takes c5. Bishop takes c5. So white has accumulated various trump cards already throughout this game. The preponderance, the majority of central pawns, a blocked in bishop on h7, queenside pressure, lovely coordination of rook and bishop. These knights are stumbling around here as well. We see black playing rook f7 now, just trying to keep in some way solid in inverted commas, but black has lost so many trump cards in the position. His counterplay is minimized. Counterplay is absolutely minimal here. White just snaps off b6 here and then snaps off b7, so a winning of material is natural. Rook b8, bishop c6 controlling e8, holding the a pawn, and now we see queen d6, and now rook f4. So the ability to chase the queen away from the center is nice, and that's employed. So where is the queen going here? Well, the queen goes to a3, believe it or not. Nakamura offers an exchange of queens. His positional trump cards are just huge, even if the queens are off. Look at this position. Nice pin here, blocked in bishop still. We see rook e7, and now with controlling e8 and that bad bishop, white just plays rook bd1, ignoring e3. Look at this. This check here will be too dangerous. But there's an even more precise move actually. If black dared take this pawn, he actually gets really punished, not just with rook d8. Let's have a look at this. Black played rook f7, basically admitting a terrible position. If he takes on e3, white has the crushing king f2. This is just a nightmare. If the rook ever leaves, then we have this rook d8. This position is not looking too healthy. There's various possibilities, like bishop e8 for bishop f7. It's not looking good at all. There might even be more incisive stuff there. And on rook e5, then again, immediately would be winning the exchange with this knight g6 check. So yeah, the rook just humbly goes to f7. This doubling of the rooks, threatening rook d8, is very powerful stuff. Very confident positional play, backed up by tactics. Now the knight is victimized. c4. The knight's going to be condemned to a8 soon if black's not careful. Or c8 is the better square, of course. So rook f8, and the knight actually goes to c8, but still it hasn't got too many prospects. Rook d7 extinguishes e7. Knight goes to a7, miserable really. Bishop g2. So white is now threatening. Rook takes c7. Black tokenly protects c7. And now Nakamura plays knight g6 check, leaving black in a really terrible state. If king g8, bishop d5 check is winning a whole rook and mating. So bishop takes g6, just to show you that actually. Yeah. Oh dear. So yeah, crushing. Bishop takes, f takes, leaves black in such a terrible state now that black resigns. White is actually threatening things like bishop b7, just to nudge the rook to take here and then double the rooks. Overwhelming, positional, murderous game here against the young grandmaster Samuel Sevian. But yeah, Nakamura had to be careful. Sevian's extremely talented player. He managed to beat Wesley So in the last US Championship. Very, very dangerous tactically. Nakamura played the type of game to minimise tactical counterplay against his young opponent. And yes, it was a brilliant demonstration of playing in such a way, as though he was like Botvinnik reincarnated or something in this game. So Nakamura is showing great positional constraint, reducing counterplay to a minimum, building up trump cards systematically, central pawn control, blocking out pieces, blunting bishops, destroying knights, rooks on the 7th, and black can just resign in the final position. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that one. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.